Listen up.
Welcome to the PowerShell Podcast, the podcast for PowerShell and the PowerShell community. And now, here's your host, Andrew Plaw.
Ribbity skibbity bapaloo. This is the PowerShell Podcast coming to you. It's another Monday and we are here. Oh my gosh, Halloween was so much fun last week. I dressed up as something. This is recorded in the past. I don't know what I dressed up as, but it was a great costume. Hope everyone out there is doing well. And yes, we are back with the PowerShell Podcast. Just like every other Monday, we're dropping this. And we also have PowerShell Wednesday every single Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. I'm your host, Andrew Plaw. That is at Andrew Plaw Tech on all socials. Always been active. We've been clipping up the podcast and sharing it. I'm going to go through the archives in the next couple of weeks and post some awesome clips from some of our favorite interviews over the years. But today, we're about to go back to sort of my origins. I think it was a really magical time in the PowerShell community where I'm going to be talking to one of my first mentors, one of the first people who inspired me to start tackling PowerShell in a pretty major and significant way. It was awesome. I'm really glad that I found them whenever I did. And that is none other than Josh King, who has been just a legend for quite a long time in the PowerShell community. He's been at PowerShell Summit, former Microsoft MVP, a whole bunch of good stuff. Josh, welcome, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We have a lot to talk about today. There's some stuff I definitely want to talk about with our shared histories. And also, a lot of people are still getting into PowerShell now. So what can we take from our experience and pass on to them? But you have some very big news to share. Well, I guess it's not super recent, but relatively recent given the lifespan of BurntToast. But if you didn't know, Josh King is actually the author of the BurntToast module, which is really awesome way to show toast notifications on Windows. And you've probably seen content on it before. I know I've written a lot of it because it's just so cool. But yeah, so what's going on with BurntToast?
So back in July, if I remember correctly, I released version 1. And I managed to time that with the 10th anniversary of publicly releasing the first version of it. I'd spent 10 years as a...
No. Really? 10 years?
10 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so
it still feels new and hip to me.
It's spent 10 years as a V0, as in like 0 dot whatever. It was finally time to bump it up to version 1.
And this was a pretty widely used. How many downloads did you have on the previous version?
So the current version is creeping up on 2 million downloads. Yeah. In 2 months, 2 or 3 months. And the previous version had gotten about 26 million.
Wow. Big numbers.
Seen some use. Yeah, big numbers. And I wish I knew where they all came from.
Right, yeah. Gosh, that is interesting in a whole lot of ways. First of all, 10 years ago, what the heck? Yeah. What OS were we even on when you created this?
So it started on Windows 8.
8, okay.
Yeah, it was interesting because I've been doing presentations and all sorts of it on it over the years. I've got screenshots of the different, notifications over time, and then when Microsoft moved them from up the top down the bottom and all sorts, and the layout changed and all sorts. So it's been a ride.
Help me understand this. So I've seen there's a lot of modules out there for PowerShell that essentially take somebody reading a bunch of C# documentation for a particular thing and kind of wrapping it and making it presentable in PowerShell. And from what I understand, that's kind of what your project is, right? Because there's like a framework for creating toast notifications. There's obviously not a PowerShell module until you create it. But is that sort of what your module does? It's one of those sort of wrapper and in between and make it PowerShellable?
So it is now, yes. When it started, I didn't know there was a library available for it. So without going too into the weeds, when Windows is displaying one of those toast notifications, and for anybody that's not aware, toast notifications are those notifications that Windows pops up, like when you've got a new email come in, Outlook will pop up saying, hey, you've got a new email message, that sort of thing. But behind the scenes for Windows, that's just an XML document that specifies what the content is. So the original versions were just hand rolling that XML and formatting it and everything. And then eventually I found out there was a library, and I very quickly moved to that because nobody wants to be handcrafting XML.
Wow. But I mean, if it works, it works. It's good that you can iterate on
it. Did
things.
a surprisingly good job.
It really did. I mean, millions of downloads, worked well. I think it's a good reminder because I think a lot of people who listen to the podcast, and back before I was doing it and learning on my come up, I would hear people talk about these projects and just assume that everything they did was perfect the first time and think that like, there's no chance I'm right. There's too many moving pieces for me to get this perfect. But the truth is, you build in public, you put it out there, people open up issues, and then fast forward, you got a whole new version that has a whole new approach.
Yeah. And I did struggle with it a bit going into version 1 as well, because from Microsoft's end and the libraries that they publish, there's now a whole new paradigm for how you can create the toast notifications. And it's really slick, and there's a lot more guardrails and all of that. But it would have been a complete rewrite of the BurntToast module. And my original intention was version 1 is going to be a complete rewrite. It'll be huge breaking changes. And I tried going down that route for a good 6 months to a year, I think, before taking a step back and going, no, this isn't quite the direction that I want the module to take, and sort of rolled a lot of that back and ended up just moving forward with the current code base without too big of a rewrite on them. But the potential to correct some past mistakes that you can only see in hindsight was enticing.
I got to ask you, I mean, I want to cover out how cool this is, but I'm just hearing what you're saying. Millions of downloads. You're not getting paid for this module. I mean, maybe you're getting a couple donations here and there, but really not worth any amount of, maybe worth a couple minutes of your time. So you're doing it for free. Psychologically that tons of people are using it and relying on it potentially in some workflows. For me, even if that was my job, that would take a lot of mental load to even think about doing that. What was that like? Because maybe that's an unspoken part about open source stuff when you create a module that takes off like that.
So yeah, there was a big, and that was a big factor in deciding not to do the full rewrite in V1 as well, because it was that thought of how many people just have this on an auto update, which organizations shouldn't do, but the reality is people do it. And then they're going to come in on Monday after I release version 1 and everything's broken. And especially if that happened to one of the big companies that use it, that wouldn't have sat well with me. But yeah, I on the module, I wrestled with burnout on it a bit because, of course, people use it, people open issues, and I don't necessarily have the time that it deserves to address those issues. So yeah, it's always balancing that with, but the millions of downloads, there's obviously people using this and depending on it, and if I can fix it for this person, it's going to fix it for those people. Yeah.
Gosh.
It's a constant struggle.
Well, hey, do you have a sponsorship enabled on your GitHub repository?
I do.
Hey, I feel like, honestly, if you're in this space and you're one of those people who've been using PowerShell, you're using projects, and maybe you have a little bit of seniority, a little bit of pull, at least ask for $100 a year. I mean, get something going to just send to some projects that you're using. Really doesn't take much, but the more, if just organizations did that, it would be such a huge difference, and more people would be, invested in things. Maybe more people would be even contributing and all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily have to be PowerShell. Obviously that's my realm, but if you're using particular programming libraries or a favorite utility that happens to be open source, it always, every one of them's going to be grateful for a little bit of support.
One thing that I see that's really cool on GitHub too is also collaborative lists. So a collection of all the, I think one was all the AI prompts that have been leaked, basically. So different ways that you can customize your AI prompt based on companies that have used it. Things like that are really cool too. So if you're doing some research for something, not saying that your whatever repo you create for this markdown file is going to be the definitive source, but building in public, it always creates an opportunity that something good could happen, and you could help someone else, meet someone else. You never know. Yeah. Got to take the chance.
Absolutely.
I think that one hint and one tip that we can give the audience that was sort of hidden in what you said is the auto updating thing. So let's imagine someone has a script And what does it do? It installs BurntToast, and then will run new BurntToast notification and do some other stuff. New BurntToast notification is the one that pops it up. You can customize it from there, but that's the kind of simplistic way. Well, maybe they have a repository and they have a dependency on or requires for BurntToast. So it'll automatically download it whenever they install a script or whatever. Okay. If they don't specify the module version, as you release V1, if there are breaking changes, which there probably should be with a major increasement, then they would be screwed. So the real fix to that is just in your requires, you can specify the module name and the module version, and then you're solid. That's absolutely the right way to do it. And you have to take this approach for I don't think there's any exceptions where you wouldn't really want that.
And taking it a step further as well as, and of course, this is putting my work hat on, you can host your own repository internally as well. So ideally, then you point all of your endpoints, all of your devices, servers, whatever, at that repository, and they consume the PowerShell modules or other packages from there, and not directly from the internet. And then even if you don't specify a version, then you can go, this is the version of this module that we've deemed as appropriate for our network. We host it on our internal repository. And then when a new version comes out, you vet that, and then you promote it to your internal repository.
Yeah, it's absolutely the right approach. So many people do not have internal repositories of any kind for their scripts, which is not good for a bunch of reasons. One, how do you distribute your modules? Right? What if your modules have dependency on other internal modules that you don't want published? Well, you have no mechanism other than freaking pulling your hair out and eventually figuring out by copying the right files for the right user and You have to have a repository. The security risk is so great from trusting public repositories. Create one really easily. There's many different methods you can go about for creating a repository. Tell your boss about it, or maybe get approval beforehand. And it's a pretty big security win. You can look up all kinds of great, crazy data to support it and make you seem like a superstar, but it is such an easy win, and you will actually benefit, like making your work life a little bit easier as well. So it's a www all the way around, man.
Well, even in the last couple of months, there's been the NPM issue where, so if you need a current example to point at to get some traction, it's fresh. So there you go.
Yep, absolutely. And it's not really going to go away, right?
It only gets worse from here, unfortunately, and that's the reality of the world at the moment.
Yeah, I think especially as your organization is, even if you have more than one IT person, you really need to be exploring. If you have less, I totally get it. Everything's probably on fire. But if you're starting to collaborate or do anything and trying to take what you're doing a little bit more seriously, you really have to. Like, oh my gosh, I won't say it anymore. But seriously, public repositories, don't trust them, please. That's a going on thing forever. And you're going to probably keep hearing about it for quite a while.
Yeah.
That being said, so we made some changes to BurntToast. We got V1 now. You said you went from just modifying straight up XML, but it worked. Can't hate on that. But now you're like constructing classes and stuff like that.
Yeah. So effectively, the underlying library, and I think I moved that in version 6 dot something. I know I've got a marker. I had a marker in the README to say, hey, there's a huge breaking change here. If you need, and I think it was with dropping support for Windows 8. If you still needed Windows 8, stick to this version. But yeah, so the underlying library basically creates objects. It's that wonderful thing that PowerShell does really well in. And then it's just a matter of stitching those objects together. And then at the end of the day, the library itself goes, okay, now take the XML representation of these objects and send it to Windows. So effectively, it still ends up being XML. It's XML all the way down. But
you're not hand piecing it together.
But I'm not hand piecing it together.
Yeah. You're not crocheting a beautiful sweater
together. Unfortunately, at points, because there's new features that I wanted to support in V1, but the old way of doing it via the library, which is still the way the module's doing it, doesn't support it. So for certain things, I've had to at the end go, the users asked for this. I can't do it via the library, so I'm just going to go sneak that into the XML. So there's a little bit of that hand rolling of the XML creeping back in just to get that support.
That is interesting. I want to talk about a few things, all right?
Sure.
Because I love talking about different ways, different pivot points where you can run your code, Azure functions, running things from the cloud, creating your REST APIs that you can hit, and then all of a sudden it does some things. These are very big perspective changers on how you can accomplish things with PowerShell, right? You can't only just fix things on your box or ones on your network. You can really touch other things that have nothing to do with IT, potentially, right? Start a coffee maker, anything. REST APIs are everywhere. Same thing for BurntToast to a certain extent. It is, if you're in the device space or you're dealing with users, like it is a mechanism for you to have certain interactions that may not otherwise exist to you. And if you make it corporatized and looks nice, like it can be part of a consistent IT experience. So they kind of know what to expect. And there's that communication and kind of almost like respect for your users when you're sort of informing them of certain things. So that being said, so we can send stuff statically. I heard there's something about actionable messages. What's going on there? What is an actionable message?
So sometimes, I'll use the example of a chat app. And I don't know of it used to be a lot more prevalent in the Windows 8 days to be able to do it, but it's still a feature of the Toasts where you might get a Toast notification pop up saying, hey, you've got a new message, and then it would give you a text box that would allow you to reply to that message. So you could do that within the Toast notification rather than having to go into the chat app and do it over there.
Yeah.
So basically for actionable notifications, it allows you as the author of the notifications to go and say, I want to get some sort of input from the user, or I want some sort of confirmation from the user. So you can add buttons, you can add text fields, drop-down lists. You can even add things to a right-click context menu, which isn't great for discoverability, but it's an option. And then within PowerShell, you can actually register to do some sort of action when an event occurs. So an event being like the user clicked the button. And then you have access to the text they typed in or the thing they selected in the drop-down box. And you can take action based on that. In version 1, that's now possible in any version of PowerShell from version 5 and above. So Windows PowerShell supports it. Previously, there was limited support, but you needed to be like on Windows 10 or 11, running PowerShell version 7.1. It was a very specific version of PowerShell that you needed to be running or above. And there was all these caveats around it. Now it just works, which is really nice. And that was the big thing. That was, for me, that was the line in the sand for being able to call BurntToast version 1 was these actionable notifications, because they do unlock a world of possibilities. And like my favorite demo for it is a notification that pops up asking you to select a GIF from a drop-down list. You select the GIF and then it goes away and it pops up another notification with that GIF on it. And it's just playing there nice and enlarged on the body of the Toast notification. So those actions that you can take, it's just a PowerShell script block. So you can literally do anything, including displaying another Toast notification. It's all just PowerShell.
Let's get a little circular. Let's get a little totally tubular and think outside the box a little bit.
Sure.
Good sir. You're telling me these actionable messages, could they be used to use a command? I don't know. Have you heard of invoke REST method? Could it do something like that?
It could.
Oh, I'm just thinking here. Remember Azure functions? Oh my gosh. Can they be triggered by invoke REST method? I think they can. And so you're telling me that effectively your end users could be empowered to kick off whatever your brain thinks of via a Toast notification. Now, I'm not saying you should solve every problem that way, but it's very good to know, and you'll look like a hero if you ever apply that knowledge. Like straight up you will. And there will be use cases where there's at least something. Like maybe you close a ticket and your automatic thing is like do the little Toast notification, say, were you happy with your service? If it's yes, they'll do one thing. If it's no, give them a little form and say, hey, we're sorry to hear. People do that for like customers, but you can do that for your internal if you're like an IT person or whatever, sysadmin. Yeah.
And you can do things like sending out a notification to say, hey, there's an update for the software. Do you want to do that now? Do you want to delay it?
Boom. Kick it off
And
right
do
there.
all that sort of stuff in there. And one use case I heard was basically needing people to reboot their PCs. And you start off nice and friendly, being like, hey, I need you to restart your PC. And you can put on the do it now or delay buttons on there. And then they don't do it. So the next day you send it again and you're nice and friendly. But you can start ramping that up and be like, hey, now you don't have the option. You're going to be rebooted in an hour, so maybe save your work.
Yeah. Give an option, do it now or do it in 5 minutes, and then start sleep.
Yeah. But yeah, the notifications, because they do show up and there's a history of them if the user happens to miss them. It does allow you to sort of meet the user where they are without sort of asking them to, hey, I built you this thing. Go and open this arcane blue window that might scare you or something.
Gosh, it just brings up so many ideas and creative things. And honestly, if you're trying to learn PowerShell, I love recommending this module because you get to see something cool and even just use it on your machine, do cool things, whatever. Write a scheduled task that checks for the latest eBay listing of new Pokemon cards that fit, whatever, do something, find some simple use case. You can play music, right? Custom MP3s.
Well, not anymore.
Oh,
unfortunately. So really,
that's probably for the best though. If you're trying to enterprise stuff, you don't want elevator music.
Well, yes. Yeah. So at some point they got rid of you used to just be able to point to like a WAV file and it would play that WAV file. They got rid of that from the Windows API. And now the only way to play a custom sound is if it's bundled within your app. So really, the real use case for this library and the notifications is you're writing a desktop app. And that app, like say Discord, would use the libraries to display the toast notifications in Windows and handle the events within its own code. So within your bundle that is your compiled code, you could include custom sounds, which is then how Discord would do its own branded sound for a notification. But because we're running PowerShell, we don't have a bundle for your app. So no custom sounds, unfortunately.
But I'm curious, actionable messages, doot, doot, doot. Could we get a little sound in there? Or I think would it not play in the right context?
So it would open up you would end up opening up a media player. So you could do it, but it would need something to run that sound, which could be fun. To troll someone is to start popping up random applications on their computer.
I kind of want to play around with this because I'm curious.
Actually,
have you tested that?
I guess you could get Windows to play a sound.
Yeah, exactly. I think like an MP3. Yeah. I've silently sent that to somebody where it just
so you could do that.
Does that. Okay.
Yeah.
So if they say, "Did you have a good experience?" and they say yes, you give them a yay with the little confetti sounds.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
And you can make them really visually appealing as well. Like I've used them for when I'm doing videos or demos and that. Like I think I used them quite extensively in my first PowerShell Summit talk, where it was a talk on performance, and it would run, I think, thousands of iterations of test cases. So of course they took a bit of time to run, and I'd use a toast notification to pop up saying, "Hey, your tests are done. You can go and show the results now." Because otherwise I would have no idea, and I'd be guessing when to go to the results. And yeah, so
that's a good use case that I like too.
Yes,
you have a script you're running on your machine.
Mm-hmm.
Have it just output whatever you're doing. You don't even need to look at it, but it's there. Keep track of things just a little bit. Don't need to do it for every script, but like for me, I kind of feel a little productive when I'm just sitting there like, oh, my script did this again. It's
great for those scripts that are going to take a while.
And you're going to forget.
But it's one of those scripts that you need to know when it's finished. Because there are scripts that will take a while to run. You don't really you're not going to jump back to it as soon as it's done. So it doesn't matter if it's an hour or two later. But some scripts you want to know.
That's a story of my life in IT. Of like, hey, let's do this task. Okay, it's going to take 5 minutes for this next stop. Oh, 1 gigabyte file. I get distracted, come back. Need BurntToast for my life.
And the bonus is, if that script creates a report, you can then put a button on the toast notification to open that report for you.
Invoke item. Oh my gosh. Pretty sweet. It is a very,
I've spent a lot of hours playing with, of course. I've sort of made my entire professional identity toasts. So it obviously struck a chord.
A lot of toast stickers in your life, a lot of burnt ones as well.
And unfortunately, I don't have any on my desk. That's shocking. I need to rectify that.
I think I have some around here somewhere. I know I've collected some over the years. So, wow. So that is burnt toast in a nutshell. There's more to it. I think that you're going to have the most success with a solution like this, imagining you're a sysadmin, working on things for your users. I think you're going to have the most success if you roll it out properly the first time and kind of make it a standard. So users know that if things are going on, they'll be notified and to check toasts and to interact with them. Maybe make a part of your onboarding process when you train them. But I think that once it's kind of the standard, people get used to it. And if you do, file an issue and just say thank you. I'm just saying.
Yes.
Sure would be nice. All right. Anything else we need to cover about burnt toast? Any other things that the audience should know?
You did mention it. The easiest way to get started with is the new. So there's a command called new BurntToast notification. That's sort of the simple entry point into creating toast notifications, and you can do most customization that you would want to do initially from that command. Then there's also a subset of what I've called in the past advanced commands, where you can sort of piece together the bits of a toast notification and get access to some of the more lower level customization that would just be cumbersome to try and expose via that more friendly entry point. But I'll caution, if you want to go that advanced route, the easiest way to learn it is to look up some of my past demos. Because my documentation at the moment isn't great for those. For the documentation for the individual commands is good, but it's how you stitch them together, because there's a specific ordering of them and all sorts. So that's my current project, is sorting out that documentation gap.
That's a big challenge. The documentation is not the most fun. If people wanted to create add an image to the toast that's maybe company logo, something like that, would they need to use more than just new burnt toast notification?
No, but a lot of it is knowing the terminology, unfortunately. Once you sort of read through the options, it makes sense. So if you wanted to add a logo, by default, the notification is going to pop up. Well, actually, by default, it's going to pop up with a burnt toast, a photo of some burnt toast.
Yes.
But you can override that, and it's called an app logo. Or in some situations, it's called an app logo override. But you can specify that, and then it will put that image in that prime spot first. So basically saying this notification came from this branded thing. So,
I think I actually...
And you can do that via the new BurntToast notification, which is sort of one of the core things.
I remember you griping about how you had to register it as an app to add an image along maybe 7 years ago or something like that. I remember hearing about how challenging that was at a certain point.
That is also one of the big changes in version 1 is prior to version 1, you would have to register an app ID. And that tells if you didn't want it to show up as coming from PowerShell, because Windows will tell you what app sent the notification. In previous versions, you could register an app ID, and you could give it an icon, give it a name, and it would pop up with that branding on it, which was really nice. But that doesn't work well with how the actionable notifications work and the events and stuff. So I ended up having to remove that app ID construct. And now if you want that full branding experience and you don't want the toast to mention PowerShell anywhere, you have to create a shortcut. And then you launch PowerShell and run your toast code through that shortcut, and then it gets all the branding. So I have a helper function to do that, and it's new BT shortcut. And it allows you to specify a name, specify an icon, and it does what it needs to do to set that all up for you.
Now, you mentioned custom terminology, and I think that's just such a common thing. As you go through these Microsoft classes, they'll choose names for different things. I saw the same thing with WinUI Shell, which is like a similar GUI kind of thing. There's a concept of panels and this and that. And You just have to kind of learn it if you really want to implement some of the more advanced features. But you had to learn it to the next level above that.
Yes. And it's very much ingrained at this point. But even I still have to go back. If I don't want to sit there piecing together how to construct things, because of course it is a little bit complicated, even I go, it's going to be quicker if I grab the code from a previous demo and use that as a jumping off point for this, whatever I'm trying to do in the advanced functions. So even I would benefit from some better documentation.
Well, that is BurntToast. If people want to get started, how can they get it?
So it's on the PowerShell gallery. So you can just do an install-module BurntToast and it will pull it down. You can also download it from GitHub. Of course, then you've got to put it in the right place and figure all that out, whereas install module will do that for you. And yeah, those are the two main places to grab it from.
Boom. Check them out.
Technically, you can install it with Chocolatey, but I haven't updated that package in a while, so I should probably do that and say, hey, you can do a Choco install BurntToast as well.
I think it's BurntToast-module, is it?
Yes.
I think I saw
so
it.
I picked it up. I picked it up from another maintainer at some point and promptly got distracted by version 1.
I mean, there's a lot to it, man. Usually projects have like a project manager and then like developers and then like, I don't know, other people who do things. Marketing, right? Like you have to come up with the logo, the stickers, speak at conferences. You're doing it all, man. So I appreciate you doing all that. And I think we all benefit from it. And I'm glad that the mental burden of, that is a lot. Like me imagining myself in that situation. So appreciate you pushing through that eventually and giving yourself the time that you needed. And I hope others in open source kind of maybe see that similar light where even though you had to step away for a little bit, doesn't mean like the world is on fire and it's crazy stuff whenever you get back. It's all right. It happens in open source quite a bit.
And people understand. I think, especially these days, people understand that are better about understanding that open source stuff is from community members. They're volunteers. They're not being paid for this. So especially when there's a person's name against it, they tend to be a bit more understanding. When it's a business doing open source, it can be a different story, but that's another topic.
Yes. All right. Well, I want to pivot a little bit and go back, because I knew you way back in the day. I met you at like the perfect time in my PowerShell journey. Not going to lie. I read our DMs from way back in the day. I scrolled back. This is 2018. First DM was November 13th, 2017. So 8 years ago.
Oh, we're getting there. Yep.
Oh my gosh. It took me a long time to scroll to the top of these DMs. But whenever I met you, and I say this in our DMs, I was at the point where I've like learned a lot of stuff for a while. And I think a lot of the audience is probably in that. They're like taking it in. They need to understand what's out there before they dive in. That's sort of how I was. I wanted to understand what was going on before I just dove in a certain direction. And I did that for a while. And then whenever I think you did a stream and you were like active, you had a blog, and I ran across it. And I was just in the perfect point in my life to apply all this PowerShell. I got to watch you do it live and code things, and I could see, oh, it's actually not magic. Okay, he'd mistyped the thing here and there, okay. But man, going back to that time, it was very interesting. It was transformational for me. I've given you a lot of shout outs on the podcast over time. Well deserved. So I want to hear your perspective at that time, because you're a bit farther along in your career and you were a little bit more accomplished. Well, a lot more accomplished. You were doing stuff with PowerShell at that time. I was still, maybe a script here or there. What was going through your mind in that period of life where you were live streaming and helping others? Were you kind of at a point where you had some success and you're ready to pay it forward? Or were you trying to maybe mix up the job opportunities by having more public visibility? Or where were you at?
So I don't actually remember what the catalyst for it was. I remember, when I started streaming, I was actually streaming on a site called Live Coding TV, which isn't around anymore in its current form. But yeah, I was doing streams on there. And I know it wasn't for money because they weren't paying. And yeah, I think it was just, and I'm not sure I was actively thinking that I'm trying to pay anything forward at the time. I just had this itch to do stuff. And I enjoyed the process of in hindsight, jumping on and like going through the actual process of what I was doing in my day to day, but sort of piercing the veil a bit and showing people, it's all right if you sort of sit there for 15 minutes going, what's the best way to actually do this, and trying this and it not working, and trying something else and it not working, and not having the perfect, almost scripted train of thought ready to go ahead of time. Which works in that format. It works in the live stream format because it's, a couple of hours and that. Whereas if you're doing a demo, you sort of need the scripted, I need to stay on track and I need this to work because otherwise I'm wasting people's time. But yeah, so then I moved. I know I ended up streaming on YouTube. I don't remember if I was streaming on Twitch at the time as well. But
I don't remember
there was
Twitch back then.
Yeah, I know I set up Twitch. I don't know if I actually used it because I had all custom panels and graphics and stuff that I used on Live Coding TV, and I know I uploaded those to Twitch. I'm not sure if I ever actually used them. But yeah, ended up streaming on YouTube, and I know you were a regular tuning in, and it was always good having someone in chat asking questions, and I would ask questions, and we had a lot of back and forth. So yeah, it was a really fun time. And,
Absolutely. And you did a lot of good. I think my impression at the time, I think your moniker was like father, husband, walking help desk or something like that. I just remember the walking help desk thing. And my impression of you is that your troubleshooting skills, and I think where you work, it was like a local council or something like that at the time, your government kind of thing. And you really kind of figured things out at a pretty high level, and you started to pay it forward. And gosh, I was so thankful for it. I want to cover a lot of things about this interaction because I think there's a lot of things that people can borrow. If you don't mind, I want to read a DM that you sent me. So initially, we had a little back and forth. You're like, hey, Andrew, I think I recognize you from the stream. But then you sent me a message further along that was just occurred. Oh, he says, hey, Andrew, do you happen to have any repos on GitHub yet? I said, no, but I just set up my first repo on my machine today. I'm looking to get my feet wet in GitHub soon. Why? That was me. Just occurred to me that I'd never asked before and was going to provide gentle encouragement to do so if you hadn't. Haha. Version control was the point where I really started to step up my personal PowerShell game. So even back then, first of all, kudos to you for being proactive about, you saw somebody who like you've interacted with and they're showing some promise. What you did for me is exactly what I do all the time now. It really doesn't take much. And that same advice also of like, get it started in open source, just take it. And you gave me that gentle encouragement several times when I was like really waffling on the edge. And I think a lot of people spend a lot of time waffling on the edge. I know I have every single risk that I took. Your boy was waffling for a long time. Now I'm done it a little bit long, but waffle, back and forth a lot.
But I think then at that point, I didn't know it. So that was, if I remember correctly, that would have been still 2017, or like it was certainly before Summit.
Early 2018, January 2018.
Yeah. So at that point, we hadn't met at Summit yet. Did you know you were going to Summit?
I found out. Yes, okay. I did. By the time you messaged me, you connected the dots after finding me on Twitter.
That's right. So. Yeah. And so, that's sort of where it all picked off. Because then, of course, we met at Summit and
Heck yeah. But let's cover this a couple ways because I'm in this space now where I'm on streams helping people and that kind of thing. And I'm seeing folks who are maybe able to reach out and I'll get that experience of being able to kind of gently encourage them. And I've been doing it long enough in this way where I've seen people go from doing nothing to blogging to becoming MVPs and all kinds of stuff. And the journey's there. It's nothing new. Many people have gone down it. It is scary as heck, especially for many of us. We maybe don't have a ton of experience with that kind of risky public stuff. And we've sort of heard maybe that people are a little judgmental about public stuff. Maybe we've seen it on Reddit or something like that. Very scary. But if you take those steps, a lot of great things come. And on the low end, you were just doing a live stream. And you know what I was doing as a viewer? Being a good viewer, communicating. I was learning. I was engaging. Same thing. If you're in some kind of user group, meetup, whatever it is, ask questions. Even if you know like 80% or even 100% of the answer, ask it if you know it's a really relevant question that wasn't covered, because there's going to be some beginners who won't know. And you don't need to say, hey, I already know this, but what is the parameter? You can just phrase it in whatever way that is a little bit more authentic and other people can get bought in. But it like really is not much that you need to start doing. Same thing as like filing an issue on GitHub. Very small things that you can do as someone trying to take your next step to grow, to be wherever you want to be in your career. You can start on a very low level and it can lead to really great things. I try and tell people that all the time. And it is just so true. There's so few people trying to make connections out there that, and I want to hear your perspective, because I can imagine with where you were in your career, we already talked, you're advanced, you're writing PowerShell scripts, which was pretty fancy at the time to be doing what you were doing. And it still is for a lot of people and for me, but you saw someone who is like eager to capitalize on your knowledge. Isn't that kind of like, that's what you're looking for as someone who's had all these lessons, is someone to like share the quick wins with? Or what was your perspective with that? Because I know I'm not the only person you've sort of mentored over the years. And
I don't know where that drive to sort of step into that role came from, because in hindsight, it's funny now thinking back, in hindsight, like I was early in my journey as well. Like but yeah, I always had this feeling that I had to help others. So at that time, you'd mentioned I was working for a city council. I'd started there on help desk. And through that time, I saw the infrastructure team, saw the cool stuff they were doing. And at the time, they were dabbling in VB script, they were dabbling in PowerShell. And I went, I'm going to learn some of that stuff. So I went and learned PowerShell, applied it in my job, and then eventually I got pulled over onto the infrastructure team because of the PowerShell stuff I was doing. And of course, personally, I saw the benefits of that and my responsibilities increasing, my salary increasing, all of that sort of stuff. Like I think I distinctly remember Josh Duffney doing a post about how PowerShell doubled his salary, and I went, wow, that sort of literally just happened for me. And if it happened for me, if it happened for Duffney, then it can happen for others as well. So yeah, I think I had this urge to try and communicate that to people, and I didn't quite know how. But yeah, when I think you were the first person that I saw that opportunity in, and this is a person that's obviously eager to learn, eager to progress their career, and maybe I can help a little bit in that journey. And I mean, at the time, I wouldn't have been thinking grand ambitions, but even maybe a gentle push might, propel them. And yeah.
Even one other person opening up GitHub issues and making small typo changes is a huge win for the community. You don't need to be a superstar for it to be worth someone investing some time into you. Maybe you just get good at PowerShell and you understand kind of how to be a good coworker, and you take that at your work. And all of a sudden, for the 4 other people you work with, wow, things are a lot easier, maybe more secure, putting out less fires, a little bit happier. But there's absolutely that salary thing, which is what drives me a lot, because I know it's a struggle out there, and it's not out of the question to get a quick little, add some new skills and maybe get a $10,000 raise. And that amount of money is life-changing for so many people. And it almost feels, I wouldn't say a burden, but it's like a responsibility. If you've benefited from this kind of knowledge, you'd have to be a little selfish to not want to pay it forward. I mean, it feels good to just share a little bit and share that experience with someone else. It's kind of isolating if you're the only one who sees it. I don't think anyone wants the burden of being like the only one who can accomplish something. You don't need to be super spectacular at anything. I think for me, the reason I was able to take certain risks is because I did have so much support, and some things were lucky for me. It might have taken a lot longer for me to eventually take those risks over time. And so I always try and remind people, don't judge yourself to others. There's always someone you can compare yourself to that is going to like make you feel very little. And that's still true for me. Like there's some people who make me look like I don't know anything, like my career is going the wrong way. But for me and where I wanted to go, I'm really pleased with myself. And yeah, there's more stuff I want to do, but you got to embrace where you are in the journey and the taking those small little steps and not forcing things unless, if you're struggling for cash, you kind of got to force things and increase that salary. But buckle in for the journey, enjoy it. And there's so many cool things that can come from just being genuinely interested and putting yourself out there. And if you're reading someone's stuff on their blogs or whatever, leave a comment. Trust me, leave a comment with your name or whatever your username is, because you're going to be in IT for a while. If you're going to be reading these blogs, you could become friends, you could become acquaintances, there's a lot of amazing things that could come out, but you have to take those risks. I highly recommend anyone who's listening, you're like, oh, this sounds fun. It is absolutely fun and it's absolutely possible. You just need to take that next small step, create your GitHub, start your blog, share something, comment, file a GitHub issue, anything.
And also, there has been a long history of people doing PowerShell content, but don't be put off about covering the same ground somebody else already has, because it's not necessarily the what that people are going to connect with. It can be your unique journey, your unique thinking, and that might be the thing that makes it click for someone else. Like, they may have read all of Don Jones's books, but some concepts just aren't clicking, and then they read your interpretation of that concept, and they go, of course, now it all makes sense. And then that can be a building block that other things build on top of. And it's all because you decided to write a blog post or
Absolutely.
give a talk or something, anything.
At the very least, it helps you learn it better times a million, and you need to have some kind of documentation for the stuff you're doing long term. It's just so right for so many reasons, but I get it. People might overthink it. Just take the small step, publish a crappy blog post, and maybe fix it later if you want to. If not, that's all good. Nobody's going to look it up anyways. No biggie. If you I actually remember asking this to you multiple times before I ever published my first blog post. I was so freaking scared. Wish I could scroll to that message and find out whatever I was saying to you, but I was so afraid. And I was like, hey, do you mind reading this? I'm a little bit nervous, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, it looks great. And I'm sure there were things but it didn't really matter. You just got to send it, and if you let yourself battle with all these things in your own mind forever, this is true for me, I would not have been able to make the next step. Bringing some outside perspective, getting a little bit of a push in the back was incredibly helpful for me. And I think a lot of people are taking that opportunity from themselves by not connecting with the community.
Indeed.
It's a fun space we live in. It really is. To have seen the journey of you and of all these other people and to kind of all be in it together, even folks who've never done anything publicly. There are some people who've never given talks, never given blog posts or anything, but I know who they are because they talk about modules, they comment on things here and there. They're always supportive, and that support goes a really long way. You'd be surprised how, a little bit of a nice thing can do a lot to go against the bad things that people hear a lot of times, or maybe the internal talks that all of us have to a certain extent. Oh man, dude, I love that kind of stuff. I'm sorry. It's been so transformational to me. I hope that some people out there connected with what we were talking about. Like I said, you got to speak to your perspective. You got to, like you're saying, with your blog posts, share that heck. If you don't know a certain subject and you can't fully speak to it, or you speak about it confused, somebody else who has that knowledge may be able to help you, but it also may help them see it from that perspective. So, gosh, Josh, I guess I'll say, hey, if anybody starts a blog or you do anything cool, take your next step. First person who reaches out to me, we'll get some free swag. I really want to see people doing this. If you want to be a speaker on PowerShell Wednesdays, I do them every single Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. And I'm happy to co-present with you. We'll choose a topic, talk through it. Maybe we'll do some coding together, whatever. I'll meet you wherever you are. A lot of people have gotten their first start with a PowerShell Wednesday. It's kind of low pressure. We have a very supportive community, but there's many fantastically supportive communities within the PowerShell space. It's kind of like a constant, like this, the vibes we're sharing, the ideals that we're sharing about passing it on. That's not unique to us. That's very prevalent across most of the community. And it's very vocal as well about really encouraging beginners to share their perspective and ask questions and contribute and embrace the journey and all that stuff. Josh, give me some advice, man. What would you say to someone who is just getting into PowerShell? Maybe they are where I was back then, where it's like, read a book, read the guides, watched the YouTube videos a few times, ran some commands, but like they're kind of ready to take that next step. What advice do you have for someone in that spot?
So beyond two things. My first thing is go and find a user group. actually get involved in the community, and you'll make connections that you can ask questions of. You'll learn stuff from, like, even if the topics that the user group are talking about, they may be beyond you, they may be for technology you're not using, but there'll be things in there that you learn, and there'll be people in chat that, well, not necessarily just in chat, but there'll be people there as well that you can start forming networks with, ask questions of, do all that sort of stuff. As for actually like hands-on keyboard, figuring out PowerShell, getting it all to click into place, what did it for me was finding a real project. Like, it's all well and good reading the textbooks and going, oh yes, that's a string, and this is a script block, and this is an array, and whatever. But actually putting it to use, and putting it to use in something that you'll actually use day to day, that will benefit you in your day to day, is huge. So for me, that was a user provisioning script in AD. And then that ended up spawning off into this thing that had would intercept emails from HR about new people joining, and it would pre-stage their accounts, and just saved everybody a ton of time. And that project there is what really made everything click into place for me. It was my first sort of big project. And it was finding that, because I'd read the books, I'd done little scripts here and there, but that was the one moment in time I can pinpoint to say that's when I got it.
That is very strong. First of all, you're a very good interviewee. I've seen what you've done. You circle, very impressive, man. Because I'm a loose cannon. We're just having fun over here on my end. I appreciate you bringing that up, because that is incredibly important. It is so easy to get lost in the things and not apply it. I think if you can find a work use case to apply PowerShell, heck yes, your brain is probably thinking in the right ways. If you can't, you probably can. You just need to actually talk to the community a little bit, brainstorm a little bit, talk about the processes you have. If you are not provisioning your new users, you probably should. Even if you don't hire that many people, go through it. Understand the processes that go down. Start by documenting things on a piece of paper, or whatever documentation you have. Turn that into PowerShell steps. I also like to tell those people, maybe there's somebody in help desk who it's like, yeah, there's no chance I'm going to be able to run code. Do something with BurntToast. Do something silly, like create a scheduled task that will check the weather every single day and pop up a BurntToast with a customized. There's so many cool, fun things that you could do. One that I did with BurntToast back in the day, I created a Pomodoro timer. I actually wrote a blog about it back in the day, but I created a Pomodoro timer with BurntToast where it would pop up a little snooze or dismiss thing. I'd run start Pomodoro timer, and 25 minutes later it'd say, hey, go take a break. You're so lovely. I love your hat. And then I would go do it.
Mm-hmm.
But those small things really go such a long way. Get something underneath your belt. Maybe share it on GitHub. Get those small wins. Take the smallest wins you can get and just keep rolling it into the next one.
And a great choice for a first project as well, if you are sitting there trying to think, oh, what can I do, is reporting. If there's some data that either you need, your manager needs, someone else in your team needs, and you notice that either yourself or they're spending way too much time in Excel or something, pulling data together and formatting it, grab the import Excel module, grab your data via PowerShell, and then use that module to put it into an Excel spreadsheet in the format that they need it in, and then it's done. Then there's 5, 10, 15, an hour, however long they spend fluffing with that Excel spreadsheet, saved because you wrote a script. And it's also really cool. One thing that I found, even with my kids that are learning other sort of programming stuff, seeing something happen is huge. Like, sure, running code and seeing numbers on a screen, whatever, but if you run something and you can see an Excel spreadsheet being populated in real time, or you can see toast notifications popping up in the corner, you've got something tangible that you can see and go, wow, that's cool. It's that endorphin hit of that. It goes a long way. And then, yeah.
It absolutely does. No, you got to see it to believe it, man. That's why it's tough to write code sometimes, because it's not as satisfying if we don't get to see it. We need to find the ways to make it satisfying. A lot of us in tech say that one day we want to escape and become a woodworker and never, it's because it's a little bit less satisfying to write that code. So make it look pretty, get those endorphins. It sounds like we share a lot of ideals. Clearly, I came up in the Josh King school of PowerShell, but I think one thing, my first big success I had with PowerShell, I think internally, there was a couple small ones, but it was reporting, just like you said. 365 licensing. Somebody spent half a day every single Friday, 4 hours every single Friday, going to each office. What 365 licenses? Blah, blah, blah. We had like 12 offices, something like that. So just write a script. If it works for one office, you just loop through them all. It works for all of them. And it had like a summary page in the beginning and then a page for each office all the way through. And those are huge wins where it's like, wow, so-and-so from IT is like, they're not just kind of alone, not contributing to anything outside of the tickets that are coming in. Like they're kind of with it. And it can change the way that your IT organization interacts with the business. A lot of businesses don't have the best communication between departments, as can be seen by how bad security is kind of around the world in most orgs, right? They can't figure it out quite yet. So you could be the catalyst to drive some change in your organization. And even if you don't succeed, I think you should absolutely take ownership of your opportunity to improve things. You'll feel good when it happens. It's kind of soulless to work if you don't feel like you're working towards something. Even if you're going to try and like imagine you're just building the skill to move on to the next thing, you got to be invested in that long-term growth and take ownership over your career. Gosh, Josh, I'm so glad we could have gone through our journeys up to this point together. Not saying it's over now. I'm just saying it. Just such an amazing experience, man. It's been a little nostalgic going back on this, hearing you say 10 years ago, BurntToast, and reading these old DMs. Oh man. I was you remember me back then, man? I was a little guy.
Yeah.
I have those photos still from our first summit when I met you on my blog of like PowerShell Summit 2018.
And then I don't remember what year it was, but it was the next summit that I went to. And I distinctly remember how we crossed paths again the first time. So I was at reception having issues with my card because, of course, traveling from New Zealand, it's always hit or miss whether my card's going to have an issue when I try checking in at reception. So I'm there, I'm stressed out. My card hasn't worked. I'm like trying to figure stuff out. And from behind me, I hear you announcing that I was there in the lobby. And now I can't live it down. This is sort of permeated through the Summit community.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But that moment, like that went a long way for me for cheering me up because I was stressed. Like, as you can imagine, it's like I think I got in at 10 or 11 at night. It had just been like 24 hours of flights and sitting in airports and all sorts. But yeah, I cracked up.
So that was after we knew each other. We'd already met once, right?
Yeah, that was a good. Well, first summit was 2018. It may have even been 2023, 5 years later.
Sounds about right, because I remember it somewhat recently.
Because I had a big gap between summits.
Yeah. It's a big gap between where you live and
so we had met. We'd been friends online for the longest time in between. And that was a like I hadn't noticed that you're in the lobby at the time, but
oh, so much fun. It's a great group. So many people in the PowerShell community have just been so supportive of me for so long. Like very early on when I had showed no promise, you were definitely one of those. So I'm forever indebted to all of you and forever paying it forward, just like we all are, right? We've all kind of come up on someone else's work to a certain extent. Most of us have made it to a certain level. You got to get some help along the way somewhere. So, we wouldn't be here without others. Wouldn't have toast notifications without BurntToast. So thank you to Josh King for that. Man, honestly, I was kind of emotionally involved in this episode and I got to close it out and I got to think about what I'm supposed to say. Thanks for listening. PowerShell Wednesday, every single Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. I'd love some new speakers to join me. That would be fantastic. DM me at Andrew Plotek, wherever on socials. We got new podcasts every single Monday. Episode 200 is coming out soon. 10 years ago for BurntToast. Reminiscing, man. But Josh, that's neither here nor there because people enjoyed this episode. If they're still listening, they were vibing. They're like, oh yeah, I love PowerShell. Woo. Where can we find you on social media if we want to connect with you, see what's going on? I know we have github.com/Windows. Is it NZ afterwards? No, just Windows. WINDOS.
Yes.
Where else are you online?
So I'm on Blue Sky, and that's at toastit.dev. Toastit.dev is also my blog. And for the most part, if it's either Toastit or Windows, it'll be me. So, yeah.
Well, Josh, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I feel like I'm forgetting. I'm supposed to say something. Hey, take care of yourselves, everybody. We love you. PowerShell's awesome. We'll see you in the future. Take care. See you next week.
Thanks for listening to the PowerShell Podcast. The PowerShell Podcast is a PDQ production, making device management simple, secure, and pretty damn quick.